As an adult, I've realized that my want for new friends has shrunk because, I've already got my circle from when I was a kid, and I want to be pickier with who I bring into my life. And I've realized that the type of person I want in my life is somebody who's like equally as ambitious as me, that we can, fantasize and make a goal of doing a project with each other.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of The Record Process. This week, we are incredibly excited to share our interview with the actor, musician, and all-around talented guy, Mr. Tyler Posey. Tyler joins the show specifically to talk about his debut solo record, Unravel. We tap into the early days of his musical development, and we talk a lot about his genuine love for the genre of pop punk as a whole. He reflects on building his relationships with collaborator and friend Matt Malpass through the process of making this record, and how they took elements of each of the different writing environments they found themselves in and allowed them to authentically guide the songwriting process between the two of them. Tyler uncovers what it's like to grapple with the expectations, not only from outside forces, but from yourself as a musician and as an artist. And he shares how good it can feel to subvert those external expectations by following your heart and intuition and learning to let that feeling guide your career. And it's all coming up right after this. So many of the albums that we'll be highlighting this season on The Record Process share one very important theme. And that's the idea of technology helping musicians and creators overcome the collaborative restrictions that once came along with geographic location. Thanks to companies like Audio Movers, real-time remote audio production and the tools that make it possible are more powerful than ever. Their groundbreaking Listen To plugin allows you to stream, record, and collaborate on high-quality audio in real time and is used on a daily basis by world-class audio engineers and professionals at places like Capitol and Abbey Road Studios. Their new Pro plan allows you to stream up to 150 users simultaneously, includes custom branding, and even allows you to stream MIDI data in real time. So head on over to audiomovers.com and enter the code RECORDPRO to get 1 month free off your Pro membership today. With over 1 million plus artists already relying on DistroKid to get their music into Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming platforms, you may have heard of it before. But if you're not yet familiar with just how easy DistroKid makes unlimited uploads and retaining 100% of your artist royalties and earnings, now is the time to finally see for yourself. And that's because they've just supercharged the functionality of their platform with the recent release of their new iOS app. The app allows you to upload new releases, check your streaming stats from Spotify and Apple, edit release metadata, and you can even set push notifications that will alert you every time you've earned royalties that you can withdraw right from the app. In addition to getting your music uploaded to DSPs faster than any competitor, DistroKid also has a ton of great promotional tools that can help you market your music better. You can view and share hyperfollow links and allow fans to pre-save your songs in advance, get the credits and lyrics for your songs instantly uploaded, and you can do all this for just $22.99 a year. So head to the App Store and download the DistroKid app for free now. Tyler Posey, welcome to The Record Process. This is going to be a fun one. You, sir, have a solo record that is, well, as we speak, about to come out. But by the time this is airing, will be out into the world. Some of the tracks are already out there. And we're so glad that you came to join us to talk about it, man. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm stoked. Thank you for the sweet intro, for pumping up the album. Yeah, man, I'm really excited. It's all sort of still relatively, this is sort of a new process for me in a few different ways. I'm just going into it. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, by all means. I
course.
love that. I was already gripped. I was like, here he goes. We're in.
You're white knuckling on the edge of your seat. Your butthole is this tight right now.
That's good. Yeah, I can't wait.
Oh, sorry. There might be a few butthole jokes. That's just kind of the way that
Dude, that's okay. This is
Okay,
we are not
fuck
censored.
yeah.
We are uncensored. It's a simple, explicit checkbox when I upload this bad boy. That's all I got to take care
Awesome.
of. So we're checking the box and we're moving on. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So there's this whole process is there's a couple of like landmarks I guess I'm hitting. It's my first full length LP. Ever since I started doing music when I was like 12, I've always wanted to release a full length, but it never really worked out. Partly because like I got busy with acting. My first band, Teen Wolf, kind of like took precedence, and so I kind of had to put that in the back burner. But we did put out like I think a 8-track EP maybe. But what I'm saying is like I've only done EPs up until this point, and so I've all the bands I grew up listening to, Blink, Green Day, every single band. I never saw an EP except for like maybe Fly Swatter, from Blink.
Mm.
So it's always been a rite of passage to me to have an album. It just was what I grew up experiencing. So this is my first album. It's my first time doing it independently. I was, I left Big Noise, the label I was on for a few years, and wanted to try it out, see what it's like independent. And it's like my first kind of big release as a solo artist, because I've done bands kind of up until this point. And so it's all kind of an experiment and exciting, and there's a lot of freedom behind it because I don't really have anybody else telling me what to do. Not that the label didn't told me what to do. I just it's just I can do whatever the hell I want. So it's kind of interesting and fun, and there's a lot of work that goes into behind the scenes that I'm realizing that like it would be nice to kind of have some help, but it's nice kind of learning all of that on my own and figuring it out, and it's really cool. I'm stoked. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I like doing things like from the ground up. I feel like I'm getting dirty, working with my hands a little bit, and so it's dope. Everything's really cool.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I like there's so much in there to unpack, even just like, I mean, obviously kind of casually brushing by the fact that outside of making music, you make a lot of other kinds of art.
I do.
And you have a few other gigs that maybe some people may be familiar with you from, right? So you've starred in a lot of the greater cinematic universe, television, film, right? And you mentioned some of those projects that kind of launched you into a whole world in terms of acting, right? But I want to kind of go back even before that, because I'm sure, like you mentioned, like the bands that you grew up on, so like Blink, Green Day, and some influences like that. What were some more of those things that, when did the music thing kind of start to come into focus, if we're using movie and film terminology?
Lens.
Yeah,
focus.
Dude. There it is. Pull it. But yeah, because I'm curious because, there's a lot of people out there, that, grow up music lovers, but never are able to make that transition, or whatever it is. And you mentioned it was very easy for you to kind of veer off into a lot of those projects that I'm sure demand a lot of time, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So my experience is kind of like any other person's experience who grew up with music. My parents sort of got me into it, or my parents' love of music was the first thing that I really noticed for music. My pops was a big, turn my mic up a little bit. My pops was a big music fan and took me to my first concert. It was a Peter, Paul and Mary concert. My favorite song was Layla by Derek and the Dominoes when I was like 5. So I had my pops had a beautiful taste in music. My mom introduced me to Alanis Morissette, who's till this day is still one of my favorite artists, and
so
Joni Mitchell. And so their taste for music was really, really, really solid. And then my older brother, who's the guitarist and musician in the family, introduced me to Sublime, mostly Metallica. He was a big metalhead and was in metal bands, and then I found Blink-182 on my own. So I was already into music. I knew I liked it. I was just looking for my own flavor. And at my friend's 7th birthday party, we were on the trampoline, and I remember Enema of the State had just come out. It was like 98 or 1999. I can't remember. And we were on his trampoline, and I was like, what is that? Like, I've never heard music that sounded like that before. And there was something about it that just really like resonated with me. I don't know. I don't know if it was like the lightheartedness, but still the talent that was behind it, cause like my parents' music, everyone was super, super, super talented. And Blink are incredible songwriters, so I don't know. I took some of that awareness to Blink.
Yeah.
But then the songs were just so fun and funny and sometimes deep. And I don't know, just it launched me to a new universe. And then I was filming a TV show in Toronto, Canada when I was really young, like 8 to 12 years old. And there were other kids on the show, but it was mostly just me and my mom, and my friends became music. So I would like go to all the record stores, buy every Blink album. Sometimes they're like little audio discographies, or they're little like documentaries through like CDs. And then I would buy Urethra Chronicles, all their or they were VHSs back then.
Yeah.
And that really sort of like solidified this love, one for Blink, but mostly just like punk rock, because punk rock to me, or pop punk, however you want to call it, to me gave me this element of connectiveness that I had been searching for as a young kid. Like when it came to acting, so I grew up in a small town in Southern California. I knew everybody. I went to school, and then when I started acting, I was homeschooled, and then I was plucked from my little hometown and launched into Mexico, Canada. And with acting, I felt a little like on the outskirts, because I felt different than the actors, because a lot of them, in my young eyes, they were divas, and their agenda was a little bit harsher than mine, and they didn't seem like the kindest people. And I was the opposite of that, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be like that, and it kind of made me embarrassed to call myself an actor. So punk rock was the first thing that I found where I was like, oh, this totally feels like me. I was like, I loved skateboarding. I loved swearing. I don't know. It just kind of like fit my MO as a young kid. And yeah, I just, at that point, I was like, I want to dedicate myself to this. And I think part of it also was that I wanted to prove that I wasn't just an actor, because I still, to this day, have a hard time with being connected with just an actor because of the stigma that kind of surrounds some actors. And I just want people to know, like, look, I'm a nice person. Like I that isn't my thing. I see everybody as equals. There's no tier system for me. And so I've always really wanted to represent that. And so music, punk rock kind of did that, because punk rock, I feel like, is pretty damn inclusive of everybody. And if you like the music, you're one of us, that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to stick with that. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And then I started playing in little bands from like 12 years old to now. And, they started in garage stages, and we would like be skateboarding and then pick up our guitars. And me and my best friend back then, he played bass, I played guitar. He was Mark Hoppus, I was Tom DeLonge. Every time we hopped into a jam session with each other. And yeah, so that's basically how any other kid starts their music career. That's how mine started. And then thankfully I had this other career that has helped sort of kind of catapult me into being able to do what I want with music. I have sort of a built-in fan base who is super loyal, and they're just the sweetest people in the world. And I get to hang out with them and meet them and hear their stories, hear how my songs are affecting them. And, my music is still not as known as the other side of my career. But the fan base that's there and loves it is just, they're just loyal and awesome, and they understand, they get what I'm doing with my music, which is great. And because it's not, I still try to stick to my roots, which is punk rock, pop punk. And that's not, aside from Blink right now, they're not like, top charting. So it's, I'm sticking to what I love. And it's nice that the fans who also listen to like Taylor Swift can also listen to my stuff and be like, I like it. It's great. You're blah, blah, blah. But
dude, listen, that's honestly, you kind of like segued right there, because I was thinking a very similar thing, that, like with the acting in those projects, you have developed a really devout fan base, even just outside of that. So, but along with that, in a lot of ways, with each record a band makes, or EP to EP, right? The idea of expectations, you mentioned being on a label before as well. And sometimes, all of those things can be a factor. And I'm curious too, with this being your first solo outing, right? You know, the first time that it's not a band, the first time that it's not another project where you're on camera, right? You know, did you feel like there might be some inherent expectations or pressures there at play, and or you know, you kind of mentioned that you felt like you know are in some way unconditionally supported by those fans, but maybe musically coming into that world, did you feel, how did you catch wind of that, or you know, was that something that really wasn't a factor here?
Yeah, interesting question, dude. I don't know. I think first and foremost, I think the pressure is if there's any pressure at all, it's from myself. You know, just because I'm doing this alone, and I'm like, shit. I want to get as many. There's this weird thing where I got sucked into early on with being in a label, was there was added pressure from other people to, without them trying to, I just put pressure on myself. I'm like, there's people here that are working for me now, kind of, and I have to I have to kind of, you know, show up and really kind of like think about this hard. Whether it's beforehand, it was all having fun. Like, I love recording music, I love writing, I love putting it out and having fun playing shows. It was all fun, but now it became sort of this business strategy that I had to, you know, think of, and it felt a little bit different. And I was putting stress on myself. Like, what do the fans want to hear? Do I need to change my sound a little bit? Do I need to be more active on social media? You know, it became not about the music, or my passion for it. It sort of became about how I'm going to impress people. And so leaving the label, I did let go of sort of all of that, and it became more fun to me, and it became back to this like just passion, love, having fun. But now there's this other element that's still kind of lingering there, where, you know, as an artist, you do want to get recognized for what you do. You know, it's as much as you want it to be this like awesome love fest where you just put it out regardless of how anyone feels about it. There's still a little bit of pressure from the inside where it's like, man, I hope people like it. I hope people listen to it, you know, all that. And I've you know, I had a whole team back at the record label, and now it's kind of just me and a couple of other people. And so I have noticed kind of like a decline of like streams, and I've just done my best not to even care and look at it. But you know, you get curious, and it you know, I think part of it is that, like, you know, I'm still learning how to promote myself without feeling like an idiot. You know, like, I always feel
Totally.
like promoting myself is kind of, it could be, to me, seen as this sort of like desperate act of like, please listen to my shit. You know, and I never want it to be like that. And so I'm still kind of like walking that line. But yeah, if anything, it's pressure for myself to kind of, you know, still have some sort of a presence in this world, you know. But, you know, in the end, like I said earlier, the fans are extremely loyal, and I have a great built-in fan base already. And so it's, you know, I'm not charting and doing anything crazy like that. And I think maybe if I tried a little bit harder, I could, but I'm trying to walk this line of having fun and not putting too much pressure around the project and letting it sort of speak for itself, because I'm such a fan of this project. I know that my fans are going to love it. And if it got into the right ears and right playlists, and I'm sure more people would hear it and love it too, and radio plays and all that. But yeah, it's definitely different not being on a label and having that sort of team around you to kind of help get it out there, you know? So
Yeah.
it's a learning process for sure. I'm happy to go through it. And yeah, when I first got on the label, I kind of stressed myself out about, you know, kind of making sure that I was making everybody happy. And now it's just me. And so I'm really trying to let go of that and not care what the streams are and all of that. But, you know, I think the fans sort of speak for itself. Like I I put out this vinyl and it sold out 3 different times. And so it's, you know, there's plenty of love there. It's just easy if you put too much pressure and stress on it to get discouraged, you know.
Of course. So Tyler, like, I guess, like, talking specifically on this, on your new release, how did you separate yourself from the, like, while starting on these tracks? How did you separate your mindset from, I guess, all of those expectations?
Yeah. Yeah, there was one specific night with my partner where what was it? We were discussing something, and then she was just like, you just need to have fun with this. And then and it hit me because like I'm thankfully in a pretty unique position as an artist, musician, where it's not I'm not all my eggs are in one basket, with music, and I have this career that can kind of help facilitate this other career, passion project, love, and I was like, you're right. I don't need to put all this stress on this music thing because I have this other career that I need that I put the stress on. Pressure and stress goes to the other career and make sure that stays, busy and alive and all of that. And so I had this like epiphany where I was like, you're right. I just need to have fun with this, and then I just started writing and didn't put any agenda on the outcome of the album, and went into it with, I've always wanted to do a project where each song is pretty damn different. I have a lot of inspirations. A lot of them fit under this umbrella of rock, and I wanted to kind of pay homage to all of that. And I was like, I think I can do that with this, and so that freed me up even more. And in the studio, there was no pressure on how to sound and how to write and what to write. And it was so fun. And then, we even did some destinations for recording. We recorded in Big Bear right on the lake, and then also in Hawaii. My producer was like, hey, I'm going to Hawaii. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, sure. Can we record there? And that kind of, helped alleviate any sort of stress or pressure. And it just became this really fun process the whole entire time, and I think that was easy for me to kind of separate that sort of judgment, but it's still an experiment. I'm still figuring it out. But I did like this process a lot. It was really fun. It brought back the creative juices, and it was just a really great time. I had a really great time with my producer and my partner who helped me write on it, Fem. So yeah, it was just I think all of that sort of really helped kind of separate that initial worry.
Oh wow. Yeah, so what's interesting about that, I mean, aside from the destination recording, which sounds fantastic, and again, I think we've talked to even some of the other interviews we've done on this season talk about doing a similar thing and how it changes the dynamic of putting an album together, of tracking, of recording, and I think, I mean. And this is kind of what I think you're describing. You realize you had to try to push against was the idea of painting yourself into a corner creatively by saying these have to like fit this really narrow like lane, or sometimes the second if a band says this is a concept record about condiments, right? When it's like, well, if it's not a condiment and it doesn't fit in that, then get rid of it. It's not good. Mm-hmm. And that can be a really difficult thing if you keep then all of a sudden every good idea you have seems to be outside the scope of what you need it to be. But in this case, you could just let it be very pure and enjoy and say, if you have a thought, if you have an influence, an idea that really moves you, right, you can chase it and it can have a place here on this album, which is, yes, as you mentioned, very eclectic, right? So like you listen to the front half, it starts out it gets going very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And it's real hard. And there is, as you mentioned, some really like aggressive rawness to it. But then, there's some stuff that maybe feels a bit more like some of the destination recording. I don't know. Exactly. Maybe let's, so it's really interesting that, I don't think it probably wouldn't have been the same record if you had those expectations to make it feel, kind of like this neat little package sewed up together. Right.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I've done that too. I've done the concept sort of EP, and my last thing that I released was all about getting sober. It was called Drugs. So I've done that too, and I do love that aspect because that also adds another creative element, and it kind of pushes you a little harder to kind of maintain this path that you're on with this project. So there's pros and cons to both and all, and it's fun to experience, I think, everything. Maybe next I'll just do an album with like no lyrics. I love listening to shit that's just kind of easy listening. You can throw on in the background. I've always kind of wanted to experiment with that, So I think that's another thing that I am very fortunate and lucky enough to have this sort of freedom because I have two careers, and the other career is obviously what I was saying before, where that's like the breadwinner. Here I can kind of just like do whatever the hell I want. I'm not gonna like lose fans for doing some crazy experimental album that other bands might unfortunately lose fans over, and they'd be like, you guys have changed, blah, blah, blah. For me, I've always been kind of like wanting to change. And I think I've set that precedence kind of early, even though my roots and most of the stuff I put out is pretty pop punk heavy. I think with this album really sets up a good tone to kind of have that freedom to just like experiment, figure it out, have fun. And I think it's always going to be good. Like I'm always going to be a fan of what I put out, and I like my taste, and I don't know. So I think it's always going to be cool.
I think that's an amazing way to look at having that kind of guiding light, because ultimately that's all we have is your own taste, right? You're only as good as the amalgamation and the sum of your tastes. You're the curator at the end of the day, right? You might pull other people in to kind of shave off a vision or help you execute something, but you're the curator. As music fans, we know that the records we love are more than just something we listen to, right? Over time, they become a part of us and a part of our identity, and nobody knows this better than the people at Rockabilia, the best online shop for band merch, hands down. For more than 30 years, Rockabilia has offered the largest selection of officially licensed music merchandise available around the world. They do it all, from authentic concert t-shirts to band hoodies and posters, and even accessories from your favorite iconic artists. They do hats, backpacks, bags, pins, belts, you name it, they have it, as well as exclusive access to limited edition designs that you can only get through them and the artists that they partner with. Maybe you missed the merch table at a recent show and you're looking to treat yourself. Maybe you're looking to treat somebody else in your life with a gift card. Or maybe you're looking to outfit the children in your life with some new gear, whether they have 2 legs or 4. Yes, they even have accessories for your pets. They have it all, so just head over to rockabilia.com or follow the link in our show notes, and for a limited time, all Record Process listeners can receive 10% off their order just by entering the code ROCKRECORD. That's all one word, ROCKRECORD, at checkout. So we are extremely proud to have the people at Oxford Pennant as an official sponsor of the Record Process again here on Season 5. And I'm here to tell you about their new pennant and flag customizer. It's real simple. All you have to do is head to oxfordpennant.com to make your own custom flag on demand. Simply type in your favorite phrase, inside joke, lyric, whatever you want, approve the preview, and Oxford will print, sew, and ship your flag straight to you from their beautiful headquarters in sunny Buffalo, New York. Creating and ordering your own custom flags from Oxford Pennant is actually so easy and affordable now that I'm concerned I'll have to start paying off my co-host Tom just to prevent him from putting every dumb thing I say this season on a flag. Seriously, I wouldn't put it past him. But with great power comes great responsibility, as we know, and that's exactly what Oxford Pennant is giving you here. All you have to do is head to oxfordpennant.com, search Customizer, and let the designing begin. And I think what's interesting, and what you were kind of saying, and I know a lot of bands that are maybe much younger or even just starting out, or hell, a lot of other independent bands, I love the fact that you kind of say this, because the way the picture that you paint with, having the acting career to kind of facilitate this project and this passion of yours in the musical realm is almost often akin to a lot of independent artists that would consider themselves like a weekend warrior or something, and say, well, I'm not pro. Like, I do this like during the week, but like, this is, all me. It's like, sometimes they're the ones that actually are able to make the best art because they are free of a lot of those expectations. And when they dive into that, they have something that's actually able to support them creatively, whereas they're not backed into a corner where they feel like they have to make creative decisions based on fiscal stability or, right, longevity. And I think that's actually a really good point, because it doesn't matter what level you're at, right? If you have something that can support and can take away that scarcity mindset of time, and allow you to really be wholly present in the kind of creation and songwriting end of things, that can generate some really great stuff. It doesn't mean it has to be the thing that you do 24/7, for it to be meaningful.
Yeah, I like what you said, where it just thrusts you into being present. Like the whole entire writing process, I was just there and not concerned like, oh, I hope this group of audience likes this song or whatever. I was just writing, and like that's that is such a fun place to be in. Cause like, I don't know, I grew up recording stuff on my own at like 12 years old at like on a little 12-track recorder thing. And it was all before like I started on computers. And so that creativeness that was so alive back then and so fun and learning, and you kind of learn as you go and fuck up and then fix it. And it's just, the whole process is just really, really, really fun. Came back with this album because there was no fear of the past or the future. It was not, I was just present. We were recording. We're like, oh, that shit sounds great. Let's do that. Oh, that sounds fucking cool. Or that sucked. Let's do it again. And so it was just such a fun place to be in. And it felt really, I don't know, special. You know, I'm glad I got to experience that.
Yeah, I love that for you, first off. But second, like, Case, like, I think you touched on something that, like, I feel like people know as the sophomore slump. For like that reason is like why that idea or that like cliche is a cliche, because now they're trying to pull in that they're trying to take it from where it was in that like infant state and now recreate that, but with money on the line.
Right.
Right. The walls have been built up. The expectations have been laid for, well, it's literally, and I'm going to go back, Tyler, I hope you're as big a fan of the movie Pop Star with Andy Samberg as I am, because it's really tough for me to not quote it, but it's just like, this one just had to sell more copies. That's why I brought in 1,000 producers. You know?
Unfortunately unfortunately in capitalism, I guess that's how that works. Thanks, capitalism, sophomore slump.
But actually, but on that note, talking about producers, right? Because this is actually interesting. And you mentioned kind of doing some fun, maybe like non-traditional kind of, creative trips, right? You went to Hawaii, you mentioned Big Bear. Let's talk about how, because I mean, a big theme on this is finding the right collaborators that are going to be behind you, that are going to help kind of Sherpa you or follow you down the rabbit hole with a harebrained idea, right? So, and keep that workflow positive and really fulfilling. So who did you work with on this one? I think we know, but I'd love to hear how it came about, because I think that also always plays an important factor in shaping what you get out of yourself as an artist, you know?
100%, dude. Yeah, it really does. I've seen that happen with other artists where they kind of hop from producer to producer, and it's dope because they get a lot of sort of flavor with their songs and different vibes. But it's hard to sort of nail down a fully realized project when you're doing that. Each song kind of sounds like it's different. Like mine sound different, but they're from the same team, so it's so that was awesome. I'm really happy I got to do that. So it's Matthew Malpass. He's done so many cool things. He used to work with John Feldman. He's done Blink Records, MGK, Train. I think Lil Nas X is on his roster. He's done a lot of really great artists, and till this day still works with them. And he and I got really, really, really close. He records this band Makeout, and my drummer is in that band also, and they wanted me to do a feature on a song, and I don't think it's out yet, so we got that coming out soon.
Nice.
And I went
to sneak peek.
A little sneak, and I think I just scream on it. They like sent me some songs, and I was like, "Can I just scream on one of these?" And they're like, "Sure."
That's honestly incredible. It's actually one of my favorite things, just as a very quick aside, when I forget who was just doing this, but I forget, it's like a very big record where they wanted features from like the most insane guests, but they didn't want them to they wanted it was like, we wanted like James Hetfield to play triangle, or sick. Like we want, you know what I mean? Like just like the dumbest shit in the world. And I love it. I'll reach out. As soon as I figure that out who it is, I'll link to it in the notes, but I'll let you know, because it's maybe the most brilliant of all. Like nowadays, the feature game is very big, but that's awesome. So I love that, where you're just like, yo, it's TP on the scream.
I love that. It's almost like picking fun at sort of the feature world, because that seems to be such a heightened, sort of blown out to proportion thing right now. Is like, I got to get a feature of this person to boost my numbers, blah blah blah, whatever. And so that kind of way sort of picks fun at it, and I think that's fucking cool. I like that. And so that's how I met Matt. I came over to his studio one time, and And it was just as I was getting sober. He was like a couple years sober at that point, or a year. And that was immediately, we kind of like, connected on that point.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Feldy was busy. And so I was like, well, the only other producer that I know is this dude. So I hit him up and I was like, yo, would you want to like maybe write a song or something? And I'm trying to work on this EP, and my other producer is Feldy, I think, was like doing Avril at the time, and every other artist, Feldy's like
I was
best.
gonna say, Feldy busy?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not
like,
buying it.
He's the dope. He's the best producer in the world. He's so sweet and gives time to everybody. And I didn't want to like disrupt him, so I was like, maybe I'll just go over here and see what this is like. And I know he's worked with Feldy. Matt worked with Feldy, so it's got to be the same sort of vibe. And I really liked us working that short little time that I did that Make Out song, and I came to a studio again one day, and we really like loosened up with each other, and realized that a lot of our humor is the same way, our sort of morals and ideals and all of this. And we want to, constantly get better every day, stay sober, blah, blah, blah. And we just, our humor is what really kind of bonded us together, and our ambitions. And we want to, aside from writing music with each other, we want to like film shit, write scripts. And every time we got together, our kinship and our likenesses grew, and we pump each other up. And it's just we just became really good buddies, honestly. Like, we became like, as an adult, I've realized that my want for new friends has shrunk, because I've already got my circle from when I was a kid, and I want to be pickier with who I bring into my life. And I've realized that the type of person I want in my life is somebody who's like equally as ambitious as me, that we can, fantasize and make a goal of doing a project with each other. And also we can like fuck around and have like so much fun and laugh and piss our pants from laughing, and also get really deep in conversation. And that's exactly what Matt is. He's a really great friend, and that's kind of first and foremost. We're just really, really, really good friends. And so it just fucking worked out great that he's also an incredible producer, and we can be really creative and throw ideas around at each other. And he adds so much to my songs, and I add so much to his songs and producing. And it's just a full circle of just never ending cycle of I don't know, cool dopeness. I don't know.
Listen, I love you. I'm sitting here like with a big ass grin on my face, because picturing what you're talking about and hearing that, especially too, like as you get older, like in just like adult times, right? It's like, yeah, like it's harder to like make actual real friends, because a lot of them are built out of nostalgia and like just time that you have lived and known someone. So to have a really good friend like that come in just outside of anything is really difficult to find that. But part of me thinks that like the way you get there, being in the studio and kind of having this vulnerability of you putting out a song and, having to extend that kind of trust to be like, this guy could like literally shit all over this thing right now and completely tear me apart. Right. But you're still willing to kind of go there. And through that, y'all find out a lot more about each other and have that kind of connection. But then that trust, like you said, allows you to kick some things down the road where he's like, hey, run with me on this. You're willing to kind of be like, all right, I'll let you go there. I trust you. Right. And I think that's a really big, important thing too. But the biggest thing that I heard there, Tyler, that I love, that we don't actually, Tom, I'm realizing this as he said it, that we don't actually talk a lot about on this show. And I for the life of me, I don't really know why, is it was important and meaningful for him too, to work with someone like you in that point. Because I think a lot of times, again, you look at a guy like Feldy, right? It's quite a laundry list of projects, and Matt in the same way could work with I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on the docket, that like creatively excites him, has a lot of labels trying to pitch some projects to him. Right. But he's got to feed that soul too, and at the end of the day, it's not always just where's the bigger paycheck coming from. It's who can I sit there and hold space with and have a good time with, and feel like we're actually having fun that makes the job fun. Cause this is that's what this, once upon a time, take it back to all the way like the early Blink days when we were all kids. That's kind of like this part of the allure, is kind of like friends being able to have fun and kind of just shed that, I say responsibility, but
No, you're right.
And I think, I think that's, I mean, I think that's brilliant. I guess there's maybe no question there. I love that you said that. And I heard you say that as a friend,
Yeah, I will elaborate. Like, we actually just went on a trip I don't know, we want to try to experience every sort of climate. So we've done the lake, we've gone to Hawaii, and we just went to the desert to record some stuff too, like just last week or so. And we were actually talking about that. Like, and I've noticed it too. He was sort of where I was when I felt like pressured, and I was writing for different reasons to try to impress people rather than just myself. I could tell that he was sort of in that ball game too, and was just he works constantly, and it's hard to keep that passion alive for yourself when you're doing project after project after project for other people. And we've been talking for a while, and we have such a good relationship, and we write so well with each other. We were like, let's just start a fucking band, like a little side project. And so we've been meaning to go out and record, and wanted to go to the desert. We found this dope Airbnb, took my dogs. We always bring the dogs, and it's always just so cozy and fun. And we always go to the store. I make breakfast, I make dinner, and it's just such a fun little time. And so a lot of that time was kind of getting back the passion for him, and I guess in myself too. But it really became this writing session of just like, fuck, this is so much fun. We needed this to kind of get that back, mostly for him, but for me too. And it was just nice to help facilitate that and be that person, and also write some cool shit. Like, it was so much fun. Like, I think we wrote one of the coolest songs I've ever written, I think. And it's nice to have now somebody else who's in there with me, because I love the band thing. And the reason why I went solo is because during COVID, my drummer, who lives in Australia, was stuck in Australia for like 3 years, and then my bassist started becoming a firefighter. And so I was like kind of alone, and I was writing music alone, and I was like, maybe I should just call it myself, and kind of pay homage to that. And then so I still crave that camaraderie of a band, and 50-50, and both putting in maximum effort and all that. And so it was really fun to kind of, get back into that with him, somebody I care about so much, and we have so much fun with each other. And so it's so we did exactly that, what you were just saying, where it's it's nice to kind of get that liveliness back in the writing process and having fun and passion again. So it was dope. It was great, and the dogs were there, and
we love when the dogs are there.
You got to have the dogs there, Tom. Yeah.
So Tyler, when so y'all had that first meeting, y'all wrote a song together. You were feeling it. How did the rest of the songs come about after that initial meet cute?
So right here, right where I'm talking, this is where I record a lot of my demos. And so I'm constantly recording, and I have got like hundreds of songs that I'm like, God damn, I want to do something with these. And so I picked out like maybe 9 or so that I really, really loved. And I was like, yo, I want to do an album with you. And he was super down, and we kind of, before I asked him to do that, I knew what his answer would be. I knew that he loved working with me, and so I when I asked him, I was like, let's make this happen, let's do it. And had some songs already laid out, and then he was like, just send me the stems for these, and then I'll spice them up and put my own magic on them. And so that's kind of how the album got started. But most of the songs we ended up just like writing while we were already there. Like, we had like a mindset of like, here's the songs we want to do. And then when we got there, we started just writing other songs, that's how I knew like we write really well with each other, not just like recording songs that I wrote, but like writing really well is something that I think is really special. And yeah, that's kind of how that started. It's just all organic, there was really no end goal. There was, I don't know. It's just, and then I realized, I was like, I think I want to make every single song sound, kind of different, and pay homage to all of my inspirations and loves. And
did you notice a difference? Maybe what were some of the examples of like the songs that you had written coming into it that you sent to him ahead of time, and then what maybe an example of one of your favorite songs that y'all actually wrote when you were there, kind of in the studio together, once that vibe had been established?
Yeah. So. Understand is a song that I wrote on my own. Piece of Shit Parade. I wrote on my own.
I love it.
And I mean, they all sound dope. So there's like not real any. The only difference I think is like a song like Runnin' or Out Loud. They have sort of a chill kind of beachy vibe, and that's because we wrote them in Hawaii. So I think where we are sort of dictated the sonically the sound of the song. Another song that's really, really, really deep is Sing, and it's about my mom who passed away a little while ago, and that's a song that while we were in Big Bear, we were there for like maybe a little over a week, recording a bunch of songs that I had already written and making them sound really, really sick and fun. And then I was at one point I like woke up and I was like, yo, I think I want to write an acoustic song here, but I didn't know what it was going to be about, and I just kind of started playing some chords. And then some lyrics came to me, and I was like, "Oh, this is about my mom. Like that's what I want to do with this song." And so yeah, I don't know. They're all the songs are super. They mean something to me and are special. But the ones that we wrote on the spot, I think just embody sort of the area where we were in our mindsets while we were there. And I don't know. They're just they're different. They're fun. They embody something different.
I'm curious as far as like how the environment affected how you wrote. What in your mind would classify like a beachy sound, or is there any like one sound in particular that you're like, you know what, that's a goddamn beach?
I mean, we definitely in the beginning of Runnin', you can hear the ocean from our Airbnb. So I thought, that's something I thought was cool. And then also in Sing, you can hear the literal fireplace. Like we tracked the fireplace and the lake. Like so you could literally you're like transported to those places. And I don't know, for me, the beachy songs, like there's just this kind of like up tempo, offbeat, like guitar strums, the classic, like, just reggae style vibes. Yeah.
But yeah, I love the like highly specific, like environmental cues like that, like you sneak into the track. There's so many amazing records that have that like capture that time and place. And Case and I have talked to artists that constantly use like voice memos.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and that captures the time and place. And there's like a immaterial quality of that, of like capturing those environmental cues in whatever medium, whether it be like voice memo or like tracking. But I love that.
Yeah, I love it too. It adds this sort of authenticness to it, and we didn't approach it. Like when we got there, we're like, okay, we have to have this element in the album. I think it just happened like really naturally, and kind of our intuition just guided us and was just like, whoa, dope. That'd be dope if we put this in there or this in there. And I think that's how all those moments, like the voice memos, I think that's how that happens.
Right.
And it does add this sort of personalization, that the audience, I think, really eats up, and they're like, wow, we're hearing something that, when the voice notes, we're hearing something really personal that nobody would have heard otherwise. And I think it's just, I don't know, it adds another element that's really fun and creative, and yeah, it's really cool. It's just a dope thing.
Yeah, Tom is a big ambisonic nature capturer for a lot of his records and the ambient stuff that he does. But this is always such an interesting, thread of commonality, because sometimes I think it's not even about it. Someone like necessarily, maybe in some of these, like, you can discern kind of what it is and what it's supposed to be. But I also find it very interesting that sometimes these kind of found sounds that might only have a meaning or a significance to the artist or the people that are putting them in the track that actually know what they are, but they still take on this interesting meaning to the listener and context. Even if someone, you can't, like, I just used in a production a while back, like it was like a London city street or whatever, but underneath everything, you can't really, you wouldn't really necessarily capture the very specific nature of it, but you get this energy from it, and you get this kind of pacing and environmental kind of white noise sound out of it. But I think that's really interesting. And sometimes those are the little nuggets that guide you, right? You guys will be the only ones that will maybe ever actually know what that fireplace looks like when you were tracking it, so it has this significance to y'all. But it also feels really at home in the track as a whole to the listener, even though they don't necessarily share that visual memory, which I guess is kind of an interesting way to pivot. Because I was curious how, again, everything like in terms of your background being in front of the camera, right? And so much of the feedback and the story that you're telling is visual. Obviously, there's a sonic component to it. Do you think visually when you're writing these songs? Is there kind of a visual language between you and Matt or John, or in the process, or do you channel a different part of your kind of brain when it comes to telling these stories?
Interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about that. I do. There is definitely a visual sort of element when I am writing, especially if it's something really specific. I think you pull from what you know to write, and sometimes I'm writing about something that's not true, or like there's a song on this album called "Piece of Shit" or POS. I can't remember how we labeled it, but it's more or less kind of about this person, the singer, who's sort of just a kind of on a bender, like a bender of life. And there's, I think I say something about taking ecstasy and washing it down with mezcal. And that's what I did for like a little while. Like whenever I was like too hopped up on something, I'd be like, I need to chill out. I feel like I'm going to die. And then I would literally take ecstasy and drink mezcal to like calm myself down, which is ass backwards from how you would think it would happen. But when I was writing that, I can see the blue powder, the blue ecstasy, and I don't know. So there's certain moments like that where, it's pretty visual. And I think if I'm telling a story, there was some other lyric. I don't think it made it on this album, but there was something about pieces of some glass shattering and wax dripping on the ground, and I can, obviously you can see what you're singing about, but that's as far as it really goes. I don't think I have like a full visual connective tissue as to what I'm writing. Sometimes, it kind of goes back and forth. Some songs are pretty specific as to a certain time in my life. Some are kind of made up. The made up ones I think kind of lend themselves to sort of just being in the ether and not really seeing a proper visual representation of what's happening. But I do try to make things make sense, lyrically and have somewhat of a story. And so I think there always is a visual aspect in my head, to kind of tie those together. Whenever I think whenever you're singing about something and linearly try to have it make sense, you will see a story in your head. But yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought about that before. Thank you. Yeah.
So I have a question for you real quick. Which is more challenging for you, do you think, than playing a fictional character like you might as an actor in a role, or singing a song that is decidedly from your perspective as Tyler Posey? Because they both present challenges, and you both, are seemingly drawing on history there. And memories, but I'm curious, what would you think if you had to lean one way or the other? Which is more challenging for you as an artist?
I mean, I think both of those embody perfectly exactly what they are. Like acting, playing a fictional character, acting is what acting is. You're coming up with shit and you're making it interesting and having it go through your own voice and really trying to creatively portray something that sort of doesn't exist. And I think that is the epitome of acting, so that, as challenging as that is, there's also a lot of freedom in it and being able to express yourself. And likewise with writing a song that's specific to my life, that I think is what music embraces and what it should be, like you write stuff that and then people identify with it. So I think both of those are the exact epitome of each subject, if that makes any sense, of each career. I think both of those things are the epitome of what it actually means. The essence of music writing is writing something specific to your life, and hopefully people can relate to it. And the epitome and the essence of acting is pulling something out of your ass, pulling nothing Does that make sense? Pulling shit out of
Totally.
your ass.
Yeah,
Out of your butthole. Out of your
Yeah,
butthole.
out of your
There you go.
butthole.
You get sink one more in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, acting is
Tom
all
Frontal.
about being in tune with your butthole.
Oh, wow.
That's a little secret that I don't think a lot of people.
A pull quote from Tyler.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know what's more challenging. You know, they both exercise extreme creativity, and I guess I don't know. I guess acting is an odd career. They're both challenging. It's interesting. It's a cool question because they're so different. You know, you want to write stuff that people connect to and have it, you know, be a sonic adventure, and then also be a good song, you know. So there's challenging moments in that where I think for me, I just follow my heart and my gut and my intuition for both. You know, I have a certain way that I write music, also how I act, and I kind of just, you know, follow my intuition and my gut for the most part, and that's how I write a song. Like I'll write a verse, I'll hear the verse, and then like the verse will stop, but I'll hear the chorus like right afterwards, and then I'll try to mimic what I feel and what I hear with the guitar and instruments and lyrics. And that's kind of what I do with acting. You know, I kind of have a gut feeling as to how this character is going to say the next line, and I'll do that, you know, and then I try to put a spin on it. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
so Tyler, taking it one step further, so when you have a song that's not like particularly about you, like you were saying, like something more in the ether, how's that differ then from because it's a completely different like aspect of songwriting at that point.
That to me, I think, is a little bit more challenging. It's fun. It's definitely a fun thing to do. But then, you know, it's like you're writing something, you're creating it from scratch. And so it's, you know, I think normally when you're doing that, you kind of pull from like sort of an experience, like, I don't know, like a failed relationship, say. You know, you can write about a failed relationship that's made up, but you've experienced that. So that's, you know, kind of creates a foundation that's easy to sort of pull from. But coming up with scenarios in a song, I think that to me could be more challenging. But that's fun. The challenging stuff is fun, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like script writing in a lot, you know, unless you're writing a biopic or whatever, it's like you get to kind of draw out and do some world building, right? Which is probably something that you mentioned, you know, you're no stranger to in that regard, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. And then there comes the question of like, do I want to be an authentic artist and sing about something that isn't true, you know? And which I see a lot of artists kind of struggle with. I've seen that before, and they want to make sure that every single song is true to them. And they even like, if say some artist is in like a really good relationship, they don't want to sing about or write about a bad relationship in fear of, you know, putting that out in the universe and then have it happen to them, you know? So it's a lot of artists really take what they say on stage and in the front of the microphone, you know, really personally. And for me, it's kind of, I don't know if it's because I grew up telling stories and acting, but I kind of can, you know, do stuff that's authentic to myself, but then also write about something that isn't true. And still have the same sort of, you know, gratification from it and connectiveness to it. So
Yeah, and almost like a conviction. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and that is probably like the perfect crossover of those two worlds, and how and how one kind of empowers you and the other almost as well. That's really interesting, man. I love that so much, and I think sometimes it's also not uncommon to see a lot of artists that when life is good, really struggle, you know, to write because they think that the only good art is them pulling trauma threads out of themselves. And I think, there is a place to go. The whole idea of art, whether it's a performance in a movie, in a show, or, you know, a song as an artist, as a singer, as a performer, you're trying to elicit a reaction, right? You know, you're trying to suspend people's perception of time and kind of bend it in, you know, whatever form and whatever length you choose, and kind of curate that. And you can do that with fiction, right? I think sometimes some of the most powerful art out there is completely, you know, fiction and has no historical precedent. So I think that's a really great way of looking at that, and something that I think really is like, it's kind of like you know, as long as the gears are still going, whether it's from your life or not, you know, you can be able to create something that resonates with someone. And I
Yeah,
think that's
totally.
a really empowered place to be, man. Well, listen, I want to wrap up by asking maybe a personal question, but also, maybe a question I'm sure, sometimes people want to know from the artist or band specifically. What do you want people to get out of this record? Because you've talked a lot about what you got out of this record too here, which I think is always really important. But what do you want people that are listening to this, whether they're, previous fans or if it's somebody new that's putting ears on this solo project or your music for the first time, what do you hope that they get out of it?
I think that my tastes and my inspirations sort of revolve around a certain era and also genre. Like it's my love for music really started late 90s, early 2000s, and it sort of just stayed there. And I think it's a fucking great time era of music and creativeness and the way that people put melodies and music together. It was just so fun and dope. And there was no added pressure of social media and trying to be the biggest artist. It was just a really great time for music. I think, I don't know. I really just, could be because I was so young and I fell in love with that era. But even now I'm just like, God damn, this music is so free and fun and cool. And you can tell that people were just having fun doing it. And then also my interests, my taste of music lie around a lot of punk rock. And I've always been an advocate for introducing my fans who might not know what that world is to punk rock and really good punk. And I used to do that a lot on Twitter. I would always post like Bayside or State Champs or Story So Far, Blink, NoFX. I'm constantly Alkaline Trio. I'm constantly posting bands that I'm listening to currently, to kind of open up that door to a lot of fans that have no idea what the hell that is. And then it's not just like screaming, and it's not, or the screaming can also be fucking really good music. And so that's why my album kind of does that. The first song kicks off with, I think it's kind of nostalgic. You hear this sort of like radio transmission coming through like the static of a TV. And that's something that I felt like a lot of, I feel like Anti-Flag did that a bunch of times. And a lot of old school punk bands kind of, did that spin. And I was like, I want to fucking do that too. And so I want to give the kids who are just now discovering my music and that scene a taste of what I went through. And maybe get inspired themselves, and kind of go down the rabbit hole of punk rock and NoFX and Anti-Flag and Bad Religion and just fucking just eat it up. And then my music does kind of like it dives in intensity. It just grows in sort of sonic sound and production. The first song is Get Out Alive, and that's the heaviest song I have on the track on the album. But it's also like sort of the least produced, because that's punk rock. It lends itself to kind of not being polished, and then it goes to more polished sounds yeah, I guess I'm just kind of opening up people's ears to a new sound and a sound that's very nostalgic for me and still kind of dictates my taste to this day. And I want to pay homage to that. Those bands, including like fucking Eve 6, 311, Sugar Ray. They did so much for me in terms of inspiring me to be a musician, but also just curating soundtrack for my life. And I want people to be introduced to that, so it's basically just an homage to everything that I love. And that's kind of why it's called Unravel. The last track on the album is called Unravel, and I just loved that name. And I was like, maybe I call it Unravel. And I've always loved when there's a title track on the album. And then it became like my loves and my inspirations unraveling out of me. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool too. Like it's literally me, my loves and interests and inspirations unraveling, so the audience can like, here's what I love. Here's everything that I love. It's not just punk rock. It's not just cool acoustic sounds. It's not just beachy type of music. It's everything, and so that's what I want people to get out of it for sure.
That's wow. At the top of this, and I'm not sure if we were recording yet, but we always kind of ask, if there's anywhere, you specifically want to go or certain things about the process you might not be comfortable with. And your exact word was, yeah, I'm an open book, dude. Let's do it.
Right.
And you know what? So I find it so perfectly fitting that we end this conversation with you mentioning the title track of this album and how, in effect, it really is just you kind of laying all of the complexities of those influences under this greater, like, kind of like punk and alternative rock banner. It's really fitting, man. I love that. I'm not sure we could have ended it a better way, Tom.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here, dude. This was such an awesome look at this record. Good luck with it. The release is coming up. I know you've already mentioned that you're already starting, the gears in the studio, and I'm sure it sounds very prolific, and will be, for many, many years to come. So, dude, you're welcome back anytime, whether it's the next project, the next album, whatever it's going to be. But in the meantime, enjoy watching the reaction that this has and pulls out of people, because it's always a really special time. So thanks, Tyler.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, you guys asked me some questions I'd never really thought about before. So it's nice to sort of, hear my answers and be like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool. I didn't know why I did that now. So thank you. I appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, bud. Yeah, that's what we're here to do. Yeah.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it.
This is a really fun interview for us. Tyler is a great guy. He's very open, and he's very talented and has a lot of incredible experiences in the entertainment business and arts in general. And I think one of the parallels that I found really interesting here between his career as an actor and his love for music and his output as a songwriter is the idea of finding the intent within a song, or the intent within a character that he's playing, right? And drawing from personal elements, even in moments of fictional creation. I think that can't be understated, because ultimately what we're trying to do, as we always say, is pull something out of the listener, pull a feeling out, make them realize that they are not alone in some sort of way. So understanding the identity, whether it is yourself as an artist or the identity of a character that you are trying to do justice, I think it's ultimately about getting to that underlying place where you can be fully present in your own feelings in order to translate that into your work. And sometimes that translation can cross many forms, many languages, many mediums, but that journey is all about finding the underlying weight and the underlying intention of those songs. And that's what ultimately gives all of our favorite records the power to unite us across space and time. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. And there's so much more ahead right here on Season 5 of
The Record Process.